Hey guys, welcome back to After Hours. We're back. Not that we've been away for any amount of time. I might be having a break coming up in the near future, but I haven't decided on that yet because I really need to make a good start with my book. Because if it's going to be something, then I need to get it done soon. So I've got a lot of podcasts that I'm recording in the next couple of weeks, so I will have hopefully about 10 weeks kind of built up so that I can kind of take a bit of time away from the podcast, editing, conversations and all that, just to kind of make a good headway. Like as I say, I've got quite a bit of the book written, but I need to crack on. I've not really written anything for a number of years now, so that's something that's in the pipeline that I need to kind of really start working on. Because if it's going to work, then I need to do it. If it's not going to work, then I need to know that it's not going to work. If that makes sense. So, yeah. So need to crack on with that. And today's guest is Lexie. Lexie's from Canada, and we just had an awesome conversation. We spoke about kind of spirituality, her world with all of that kind of not so much holistic medicine, but just delving into how we perceive the universe and I just love all that kind of aspect of the conversation that we had. Lexie did have quite a conservative kind of upbringing. Her parents were quite strict, and did that lead to her drinking from an early age? I mean, I think she was about 13, 14. Even so much so that she was secretly kind of drinking even away from her friends, like going over for sleepovers, and hiding a bottle, which is a bit of a different kind of aspect in that. I think, she did eventually start drinking with her friends, but there was always a bit of kind of secretive drinking going on, like down the mall and things like that. So her drinking did kind of escalate through her 20s until almost like, I suppose, like a breaking point when she was about 30 and had a car accident. Her friend and her partner really kind of supported her through that, and managed to, help her, but without any real kind of any fellowship or smart or podcasts or anything like that. Wasn't really until after she had made a good headway into getting sober that she realised like the work that she'd been doing and kind of putting forward was what they kind of ask you and suggest you to do in the fellowship or in smart and all of these things, journaling, looking within yourself. So she just kind of knew instinctively that this is what she had to do. So a very kind of unique kind of method of getting sober. Like just in her head, she knew I have to get sober, and she knew exactly what she needed to do in order to get that way forward. So, that's why she's now doing sober coaching, and mentoring people as well. So yeah, it's a fascinating conversation. So sit back, listen for the similarities as always, and there is a little we lost connection halfway through it, so there's a little blip. You'll probably more notice it if you're watching it on video than just the kind of audio. I don't think we've missed any of the conversation, which unfortunately I think 2 weeks ago we had Craig's on and we did lose a bit of the conversation. So again, apologies for that. As I say, I'm still early days with the podcast, so I'm still learning as I go. But I think with Lexie's we didn't lose any of the conversation. It was just the internet went down and then we got her back up and continued on. So there is a little splice in the video and obviously the audio as well, but I think it's more noticeable when you're watching it. So but anyone that's watching, let me know in the comments and tell me what you think of it. But yeah, for now, here's Lexie. Cheers guys, see you at the end. Lexie, welcome to After Hours. Now
Thank
you
you.
are, I think you're my third Canadian. Are you actually Canadian? I know you're
I'm
in Canada, but
Canadian, yes.
you are Canadian. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So I think you're my third Canadian on. So Canadians obviously seem to love the podcast, so thank you for giving
Amazing.
up your time.
Thank you for having me.
Where You're very welcome. You're very welcome. I love your Instagram, which we'll post on the show notes. But I think it's a great page. You're getting a lot of traction as well. So, whereabouts in Canada are you?
I'm in Ontario. I'm just in a town north of
Nice.
Toronto.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. My geography used to be really good. Now, Toronto, is that the one that's just across Lake Michigan?
So yeah, it's at the bottom of Ontario, so I'm southern Ontario.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can
Cool.
basically drive to New York in about 8 hours.
I love how you say in about 8 hours. I
Yeah, no
mean,
big
like
deal.
I live in, well, I used to live in the UK, which I think the longest drive you can do from one side to the other is like maybe three and a half. Well, it's probably about 5 hours, but still, it's not very big. Isle of Man, where I live now, it's like 45, 50 minutes from top to bottom, so it's very
Wow.
small.
Wow. That's awesome
Yeah,
though. I love
yeah.
small towns.
Yeah, Canada's one that's eluded me. I want to go to Canada. I really, I love everything about it. But one day I will get over there. So yeah, so watch the space. But yeah, Lexi, what we really want to kind of, is delve into a little bit of your past. Like, how was your childhood, where you grew up, and when you had your first drink. At what age?
I was 15 when I had my first drink.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I instantly loved it. I
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have an easy childhood where, so I'm adopted. My parents adopted me in
Okay.
their early 40s. So they're a lot older than my friends' parents. So I was
Yeah.
raised more as a Gen X as opposed to a millennial.
Mm-hmm.
So they were a little bit more cold, a little bit more distant, and I always saw my friends' parents, like getting down and having fun with their kids, and my parents were more like reserved and a little bit more old school. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't feel as connected to them as other people did their parents. So I mean, they did their best. They're great people.
Mm-hmm.
They're very strict, very controlling growing up. So um, I had a lot of trauma in my past, and I think when I had that first drink, I felt buzzed, obviously, and I felt like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, I actually feel good inside. I want this to never end. So um, I would, at 15 years old, I would sneak like a Mickey of vodka into
Mm-hmm.
into my friends' houses for like play dates or movie night, and I would secretly drink at the age of 15, which
Oh,
a
like
part of,
not like even your friends weren't doing it, but you were
yeah.
drinking
So
and your
it
friends were
started
right,
young.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of a problem, but I was just like, whatever, like I'm just different, like I'm cool, like whatever.
Yeah.
Started doing drugs at 16. That was a whole new ball game for me. I was just entranced with drug escapism, especially like hallucinogenics or cocaine.
Yeah.
Um, Got really
Oh,
addicted
so
really
you're
fast.
like you're straight in like, yeah, not just the weed, but like, Class A's and
Yeah, I
psychedelics
never
as
liked
well. Yeah.
weed. I always liked the harder stuff for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean. Like, see, like I started drinking at 14, started weed not long after that, I think. And that was just more for us, like that was a kind of daytime thing, like we would do at school, and it was more like, like smoking cigarettes. It didn't really, that wasn't a party drug for us. That was just kind of like what we did to kind of pass the time. And then at the weekends it was like, your speeds, your kind of acid and things like that. So yeah, I know what you
Yeah.
mean, but like there was a lot of weed in my early years, but again, like thinking back, I wasn't doing it as like a party drug. It was more just like, this is what we do during the day type thing.
Yeah, it was normalized, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so like when you were drinking and taking drugs and things like that, was it a social thing? I mean, like you said, your friends weren't drinking when you'd go around for like a sleepover and things like that, watch a movie,
Yeah,
but
I
did
mean, I
you
would bring it
did it
for like
become a
a
social
regular.
thing?
It was, yeah, it was totally a social thing. My friends and
Yeah.
I did drugs together. My friends and I drank together. But I would just kind
Hmm.
of take it to the next level. Like I would bring
Yeah.
it to the mall and I would have it, like I would get a Starbucks drink and I would put it in the Starbucks drink and nobody would know. Although I'm sure they would know because
Wow.
I would act differently. But yeah. I was just
Yeah.
always attracted to having that mask where I didn't have to feel things that I was feeling.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean that's it's interesting because like you're already hiding it, even though as you say it was probably quite obvious that, you're what, like 16, 17 at the mall, and you're clear because like the thing is, like I know being sober now, you go to a bar or whatever and you're chatting to people and you can tell the ones that are like only a couple of drinks in, so
Yes.
you must have, but they must have just thought, oh, that's Lexie, she's, cooler than the rest of us and all that. Because it is, let's be honest, when you're a kid, it's like, wow, that person doesn't give a F. They're crazy.
Yeah.
They're doing this, they're drinking at the mall at the weekend or whatever. So, yeah, but I mean, secret drinking almost at that age as well. So, how did
Yes.
that kind of develop with school? I mean, did you stick in at school and then go to college or?
Yeah, I graduated high school and then I went to the
Mhm,
International Academy of Health Education where I still drank, but not like during the day, not in class type thing. So it
mhm,
slowed
mhm,
down a little bit when I was in school. Picked it back up when I graduated, and I moved out. I moved out at 16 actually from my parents' house. I moved into a
mhm.
house with some other girls, and of course, my drinking went off the rails. I would drink vanilla extract or Listerine because I couldn't get my hands on alcohol because I was underage. Um,
Wow.
yeah, I was able to kind of control it in the massage school. However, like it was always there.
Sorry, vanilla extract, is that alcoholic?
Yeah, yeah. There's alcohol in
I
that.
mean, I never knew that. I mean, my one of my main things was, and I didn't, it didn't click. I mean, looking back, I must have known that mouthwash had alcohol in it. Some doesn't, some does. But
Right.
for me, I was using that as to mask the smell from my partner at the time. But
Mhm.
instead of spitting it out, I was drinking it. I was just swallowing it, and it was obviously a little swig here, a little swig there, but it does add up. And if you're putting that
Yeah.
on top of the alcohol that you're already drinking, it's like, oh
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry. Anyway, carry on, carry on.
No, it's all good. Um, it was kind of on and off. Like I would taper for a little bit and like, okay, I'm only going to drink on weekends or I'm only going to drink during the nighttime. I would always set rules for myself, right? And I would
Yeah.
always break those rules eventually. But when COVID hit, I guess I just stopped caring altogether. And
Hmm.
I was about 30 years old when I started just drinking every day and stopped caring about how it affected my health, my relationships, my work, my productivity, everything. And it was 2022 when I spiraled out of control. My mentor had passed away in October, and I
Hmm.
just didn't even put a time limit on my drinking. I would just
Yeah.
pour a drink right after my workout. Could have been like 12 o'clock in the afternoon, 11:30, doesn't matter. I would put it
Hmm.
into a coffee traveler. I'd take it with me to the grocery store, take it with me to work. I would just take it with me everywhere. I'd need a drink all the time to answer the phone,
Yeah.
to open my mail, to go to the friggin' store. Like I just couldn't live without it until one
Yeah.
day I went too far and I brought it to a work event and I was drinking secretly in the car. I would go out for like smoke breaks, but I would drink. But it was so obvious because like there wasn't alcohol at the event at all. So
Uh,
I got pretty wasted. I got wasted really fast, which I wasn't expecting. And I got
uh-huh.
into my car to drive home and I got into a car accident. Nobody was hurt, but it was a huge wake up call. My friend was driving behind me. She saw the whole thing. And she's a tough love kind of girl. And she
Yeah.
basically said, Lexi, if you don't get your shit together and you don't stop hurting yourself, I need to back away. Like, I can't do this anymore. I can't watch you do this to yourself. And my
Yeah.
partner also said the same thing. And I was like, okay, so I can either continue destroying my life and lose everything and everyone I love, or I can really try to get my shit together. So I was like, I'll just try. Maybe I just won't drink tomorrow. I won't drink tomorrow. See what happens.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that tomorrow was really difficult, obviously. But I didn't drink that day, and I haven't had it since.
Wow.
Yeah.
So just from your friend and your partner saying, like basically we've had enough of this, and did you do any kind of like, fellowship stuff or smart recovery or,
Nothing. I
you
did
know?
not go to groups. I did not go to therapy. I did it all on my own. I
Wow.
Looking back, like had I known that there were sobriety coaches like what I'm doing now, I would have
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
totally
yeah.
gone down that route, but I didn't know that those existed. And I looked up AA and I looked at some of the rules and stuff, and I was like, I'm not sure if I really connect with this. And if I'm gonna do this, I need to do it my own way, in a way that
Yeah.
I feel 100% like I'm gonna follow through, because otherwise there's no
Yeah.
point. So I went off social media for like 2 months. I locked myself in my room. I did tons of journaling. I looked
Hmm.
deep inside myself at all the places where I was scared to look, all the things that I was hiding since I was 16 years old. I brought them all forward, and I worked through them with writing and meditation and visualization, changing my own narrative. Like I did really hard work, but it really paid off.
Yeah, I mean, like, when you say, "Oh, I didn't go to AA or fellowship," and I know that those aren't the only way, and a lot of people do it kind of cold turkey like you did, but you did the work. It sounds like you've done everything that those groups kind of mention and suggest people to do anyway, like, journaling, meditation, looking inside yourself and making amends to, yourself and to other people around you. So it sounds like you've done all the work just kind of on your own. And did you listen to podcasts or watch films or YouTube or anything like that to kind of get an insight or
No,
no?
I stayed away from the internet. I don't know. I just wanted to be with myself. Like for some
Yeah.
reason, I was just like, I just need this to be me and me, no one else.
Yeah.
And that's I didn't listen to anything. I didn't watch anything. I didn't really read anything. It was only like after my 3 month sobriety that I reactivated my Instagram and started following sober people and sober posts and stuff.
Yeah. Which is amazing because even 2022, and that's so. See if I remember. Is it the 25th of November 2022?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
memory.
Thank you. I've seen it before, but I looked it up again earlier. So that makes you. Well, you tell us how many days are you today then, Lexie?
Exactly 1,000 days sober today.
Amazing, amazing. Well done, you. I mean, yeah. It's such an amazing, goal and milestone to have reached, and yeah, to have done that all yourself as well. And like what I was saying was, like back in 2022, there wasn't. I mean, there was a lot more than even when I started got sober in 2020. But there wasn't that many, and I don't know whether it's like you mentioned COVID there. I don't know what I would have done had I continued drinking through COVID because I got sober about 3 or 4 months into it, but the first 3 or 4 months was just it was hell because there was no one around me really to stop me, and I just kind of was drinking hell for leather, waking up in the morning, going to the shop because I wasn't working, and that kind of that whole time, that whole era, COVIDian era, it's got a lot to answer for. I think a lot of people really struggled through that, but it sounds like you kind of made the decision to kind of get out of it. And yeah, I mean, even 2022, we were kind of coming out at the end of it then, but since then and now, the sober community on Instagram, even Facebook to an extent, but it's just kind of ballooned. It's massive,
It has grown
and I
so
just
fast.
it's growing so fast, which is amazing because I think a lot of people now, especially younger people, that they don't want to go and sit in meetings. And I did go to the meetings for the first year, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. But I think a lot of people prefer to do things online. And yeah, I get that there's Zoom meetings and this, that, and the other. But I think to get help, there's so many different avenues now as well, and obviously people like
Yeah.
yourself doing your sober coaching as well, because that was a thing that like I'd never even heard of it. That was all news to me when I started seeing all these people popping up on Instagram and things like that, which is amazing. What was your job before? Like, is sober coaching now your main job, or are you
It is
still
one
kind
of
of
them. Yeah, I'm also a massage
yeah
therapist, and I do energy healing for people too. So it kind of fits right in with everything that I do.
yeah?
It's all about wellness and helping people.
And I guess that does make sense as to how you kind of almost knew which work to be that needed to be done to get yourself sober. You're kind of which then again makes me think, why oh why were you drinking? Because you're in wellness, you're
Mm.
steeped in that whole kind of universe of let's make ourselves better, wholer people, and yet you were still drinking. It's baffling.
Oh yeah,
Why do you think you were
because
drinking? I mean, I know you said about the trauma and things in the past, but yeah, sorry, go on.
I had a lot of unresolved emotions, and I have autism as well, and I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it really dulled the overstimulation, and it really dulled the sensory overload. Um, and the emotions that I feel inside, it's really hard for me to bring them out and express them. Even now, I have been working really hard on it, but it's just I felt so much inside, and I felt like I couldn't let it out, so I just drank it away. And even though
Yeah.
I was helping other people, I could help people through their deepest trauma, no problem. But my own stuff, I was just hiding from it and running away. I basically just abandoned myself in order to survive.
Yeah, yeah, I get that, and it is. We seem to. I'm reading a book at the moment called the Road Less Traveled. I can't remember the author's name at the moment, but we're talking about the delay of gratification. I've only just started the book, but it's like the delay of gratification. Kids seem to work this out, and they know how to deal with like the things they don't want to like say for example you're at work and you're thinking, well, I've got all this really hard work to do, but I'm going to save that to the end of the day or the end of the week. We put stuff off, but kids seem to have the knack because their parents kind of tell them, right, get this done first, and then you can enjoy the better stuff, right?
Mhm.
When we hit adolescence, we seem to throw that out the window. We just kind of go, you know what, I want an easy life. I'm gonna put that off, and it's what we do at work. We put stuff off, but in fact, if we get all the hard stuff done first, then we can enjoy our jobs and enjoy the rest of the day. But it's really interesting that that's the first thing we do is when we get home from work and we've had a good day or a bad day, we'll open that bottle because we think we deserve it. And
Yeah.
actually, why don't we put that off to maybe the weekend or a special event? But it just becomes the norm that we just have that instant gratification. And we live in a world where everything's at our fingertips, everything's right in front of us. And so it's really hard to do this delayed gratification. But I'm not saying I'm perfect at it either. But I think with me and my drinking, it was so easy to just come home and pop that bottle. And it didn't, like for me, it didn't happen overnight. I didn't wake up in my mid 20s. Like looking back, I probably did have a drink problem, but I wasn't as bad as it became. I was still just like party drinking and social drinking, and I needed to kind of have an excuse, if that makes sense. Like I'd make excuses and I'd find excuses, but at the end I was just like, I'm leave. Well, I left my partner at the time because she was trying to stop me drinking, which was,
Mhm.
that's what I needed. But I was like, nope, I'm gonna. I need this gratification. I need this pleasure in my life, which I thought it was pleasurable. And I would wake up in the morning and drink, because there was no one to tell me not to. And the one person we need to tell us not to is ourselves. And if we're not even listening to ourselves, then it's just absolute baffling. Yeah, yeah. So how long into your sobriety did you decide to kind of become a sober coach and start doing what you're doing now?
That's interesting because when I was about 8 months sober, I started following a page, Natural Highs Recovery, and really
Hmm.
liked his content. And he reached out and messaged me and asked me about my sobriety journey. And no one had done that before online. So
Yeah.
I just kind of opened up to him. I said, I'm 8 months sober. I'm doing really well. This is how I got sober. And you know what? I'm at that point where I'm really ready to give back. Like I don't
Yeah.
want anyone to have to go through it alone like I did, even though it was my choice to go through it alone. I want to make it easier for people. And he's like, wow, Lexie, like I have an opportunity for you. If you want to take it, you can take it. But I'm actually a business coach for people who want to be sobriety coaches. I'm like, no way. Like, this did
Wow.
not just fall into my lap. Like, this is amazing. So I've been working with him ever since. Like he helped me build my business. He helped me build my program. He
Yeah.
basically just gives me suggestions, gives me guidance, and I take them and I run with them. I do it my own way. And I would say my business really started, like I started seeing clients when I was about a year sober. And I know that's very
Hmm.
fresh and very youngly sober. But I was ready. I was like 1,000% ready. I was like, I got this in the bag and I want to help people right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I totally understand why you think, oh, I'm newly sober and this, that, and the other. And I know that there's people out there that probably go, oh, you're too early days to do that. But I think sometimes, and obviously I can see the passion in you for doing it, and you love doing it and helping people. It's that you've still got that early sobriety to be able to help people. Like I want to become a sober coach at some point as well, and I'm like we said, I'm 5 years sober now, and sometimes that can be a bit daunting for someone that's just starting to. It was daunting for me when I had friends in the meetings that were like 2, 3 years ahead of me, and I was like day 4. Do you know what I mean? So if they're just starting out and they think, oh my God, 5 years, that's amazing. How can I get to that? It seems very daunting, but because you're still, such early days, it is, I think it's a gift to be able to show people and help them out when you're that early days as well. So, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
a really
it's,
good point. I never thought of it that way.
I mean, I know 5 years is still early days, but I know people that are 20 years sober as well, and I think to myself, my God, like I'm not wishing my sobriety away. Um, but I know it can be like a massive thought for people that are just sober. They're like, oh, I want to get 5 years, but it just seems so daunting. So yeah, it's uh,
Yeah.
it's it's good, and I love, like for me on Instagram when I see people that are like day one, 1 week, whatever. I'm like, hit that like button. I send them a message and just
Yeah,
say, keep
definitely.
going because those are the ones that we need to kind of bring into the forefront because they
Absolutely.
just need the support. Like, I couldn't do it my own. And, although you did do it like mostly on your own, you had the support, I'm sure, of your friend and your partner
Yes,
and,
I did.
your
Like they were
family as
cheering me
well.
on. Yeah, but they
Yeah.
knew that that I was the only one that could help me. Like you said before, like we're the only ones that can tell us to get sober. Like other people can say
Yeah.
you need to stop drinking until they're blue in the face, but we're just gonna get angry or shut them out until we're ready, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So how were the first couple of months of sobriety for you? Did you did say that you kind of kept yourself to yourself, and I totally get that. I like hermetized, if that's even a word, myself for the first kind of year almost. But did you go to events or bars or parties or anything like that in the first couple of
I'm gonna
months?
say like the first 5 months I did not go out really at all. I think the
Hmm.
first time I went out was in August to Rib Fest. We have this Rib Fest thing in Canada where a bunch of rib vendors come and, sell their ribs and we get to try them. So I
Yeah,
went
yeah, yeah.
out with a couple friends from work. We all used to work at the same
Hmm.
place, and one of the girls was drinking, and lots of people were drinking, but one of my friends was drinking, and I just realized like that doesn't even bother me. I was like,
Hmm.
I thought that this would be a problem for me, and I'd want it, but I don't. And since that moment, I was okay with, going to restaurants and people drinking around me and even people getting drunk around me. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't know. That doesn't mean
Yeah.
that sometimes, like my dad, I went to see my parents this weekend. My dad had a cold beer in a glass that he
Hmm.
had had in the freezer, and it was just like this ice cold beer. And I looked at it and I was like, man, I wish I could have an ice cold beer like that. But it wasn't like oh my God, I need a beer right now. It was just like, yeah, I remember how it tastes. I remember how good it feels to just have a few sips. But, I obviously can't have a few sips. I would have one, then five, then seven, then nine, and then it'd be a problem. Right. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
to answer your
But
question,
it's
I did hermetize myself for quite some time before trying to venture out into the public.
And I think that's, everyone's different, but I think, well, it worked for me, it worked for you. And I think it is sometimes a necessity to do that because I see people that, they get sober, they're straight on the alcohol free stuff because they want to go out and they go to parties and bars and stuff. And I think that sometimes can be a bit of, dicing with danger there because you're still in those early days, and you're replacing the alcohol for this alcohol free thing, but you're not getting what you used to get from it. I'll drink alcohol free stuff, but I don't have any in the fridge. I don't think, I don't have it just on a Tuesday afternoon home from work. I'll have it if I go out. And I think they can be a really good tool for some people, but I think there is a bit of danger with those as well to kind of replace it, if you're going out as well. But I think it's fascinating, that whole your mind process with the ice cold beer, and we associate that because the weather's hot, and it's like, you see
Yeah.
the bubbles on the glass, the condensation, and it's mad. I did a half marathon just not last weekend, the weekend before, and I was running. We were getting towards the end of it, and I heard this couple behind me, and he was talking about, "Oh, I can't wait to have this ice cold beer when I finish." And
Mm.
I was like, "Really? Like, why? You're doing all this running, and then you're going to go and have some poison?" But actually, the lady next to him was like, "You're having a glass of ice cold beer. I'm going to have a box of wine." And I was like, "Oh my God!"
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
you're doing this half marathon. You've obviously got yourself half marathon fit, and then you just want to go and have a box of wine. And good luck to them. Do you know what I mean? I'm not got a problem with that. It just was like the furthest thing from my mind when I was doing that run. I was like, I'm gonna finish this and have some water, and then, go and have some nice food, and yeah, chill out with my wife. But yeah, it's funny how that is what the brain associates, like, a hot day, or doing some exercise. Let's
For
have let's
sure.
have some wine or some beer. It's crazy. Yeah, yeah. Um, so do you think alcohol still has a place in our society, Lexi?
I mean, people still drink, if that's what you mean.
Well, I mean, I know people drink. Sorry, what I mean is, like, do you think that it still should be here? Like, for example, if alcohol was discovered today, they pretty much outlaw it because it's probably one of the most, well, it's the second most harmful drug, I think, compared to, next to tobacco. All the other drugs, harmful drugs, they're not nearly as harmful as alcohol. So I think if it was discovered today, they would have to make it illegal. Now, I'm not saying that we're gonna outlaw it or anything, but I just wanted to know your kind of thoughts on where it is in society nowadays.
I mean, I don't have any problem with anyone drinking.
Hmm.
I obviously don't judge anyone. I meet them where they are. I do have a couple people in my life who I observe, and yes, they might have a drinking problem. I would
Hmm.
never be the one to bring that forward because it's not my place. And I knew if someone did that to me, I would just bite their head off and get defensive and whatever. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
I do
sure.
think that awareness should be raised about what alcohol can actually do to you, not just
Yeah.
physically, but mentally. And I think that is happening more and more these days. But it is so ingrained in our society that, I mean, if you want to drink, you go for it, buddy. Like, you want to have 3 beers, you want to have 5 beers, you go for it, buddy. Like, it's not my business. I personally cannot go there because it's just the way I'm wired. I even told
Yeah.
my partner, I was like, buddy, you love Guinness. Like, why don't you have a Guinness? And Jax was like, no, 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 I don't want a Guinness. I'm like, do you not want it because of me, or do you not want it because you don't want it? And she's like,
Hmm.
I don't want it because I don't want it. And I'm like, well, just, promise me that you're not enjoying a beer because of me, because I don't want to be the reason that you don't love your Guinness. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
sometimes
get
you can
that, and
enjoy
it's like,
something and not have it be a problem. Meanwhile, like, if you're like us, you make it a problem.
yeah, yeah. It's. I know what you're saying, because you're worried that she's not going to enjoy something that brings her pleasure without, but she's doing that because you've kind of given up alcohol. I mean, it is a tough one. It sounds like she's just doing it because she doesn't fancy it, but that's the thing. My wife doesn't drink really at all. She'll have the odd one here or there. She gave up for 6 months, not because she needed to or wanted to prove anything. It just kind of happened, and she was like, "Oh, you know what? She did it. I've got a group where it's called Sober Seasons, and I encourage people to give up for 3 months rather than, because like a month dry January, it's not really enough. So like the 90 days, 100 days is definitely where you start to notice
You
things.
notice it,
So
yeah.
Jen joined, I think, she did the autumn one, and then she had a few drinks at Christmas, and then she did like the kind of so I suppose the spring one, and then before she knew it, she'd done 6 months, and she was like, oh, and she's had a drink since, but like it doesn't bother her. But yeah, your partner should try the Guinness Zero.
Yeah, we've talked
I
about
think
that. We've talked about that.
it's
And I
fantastic.
actually tried a Coors Banquet non-alcoholic beer at my grandparents a couple weeks ago. And
Coors Banquet. Oh,
yeah, it's I
never
used to
heard of
love
that.
drinking Coors Banquet, so they gave me a Heineken, the 0% Heineken, and I
Yeah,
was like, yeah, it's okay.
yeah,
And then
it's
I
all
tried
right.
the Coors Banquet, and I was like, I finished it in maybe like 4 or 5 sips, first of all. Second of all, I
Yeah,
was like, they're like, do you want another one? I'm like, absolutely not. This is too delicious, and it's a slippery slope, I think, and this could become a problem for me. So thank you, but no thank you. But it was really
yeah.
good.
It's fun. I So I think Guinness Zero is like the one that I will go to when I'm out, like at a restaurant or wherever. We went out for a Christmas meal with one of my customers, and we were sat at the table, so they were bringing drinks over, and I had my Guinness Zero, and I think the first one I saw them pour it, like it was on draft or something, and I saw them pour it, and then I got another one, and I didn't see them pour it. It was just brought to the table, and I was like, huh. And I was halfway through it, and I was thinking, how do I know that this is? Do you know what I mean? And then, like my head started playing a trick on me. And I was driving, and I was kind of like, oh my god, like what if they've kind of put, a full Guinness in that by accident? And it just kind of panicked me out, and I stopped drinking it. Like I think it was zero, but it wasn't like I needed to finish it anyway because
Right.
it is what it is. It's not.
If
But
it's
I
messing with
just
your
thought
head, like put it away.
messing with my head, and I honestly was starting to convince myself that I was feeling tipsy, and it was like, I wasn't, but I just thought, you know what, I don't need to finish that, so I didn't. And yeah, but then I was at a party. This was, I think I must have been like 2 years sober, and I was going to a party, and I still had like a bit of anxiety about social events, and I think we all still do, but I mean, I still do, and I only stay at parties till a certain time, and then I'm like, right, come on, Jen, we're going. And I mean, I stayed pretty late, but this first time, like I'd not long met Jen, and it was meeting all her friends and stuff, and I think I might have had about 5 or 6, maybe 7 Guinness Zeros. So I was like using them as a kind of coping
Yeah.
mechanism almost, and I was like, and it worried me a little bit. Obviously, they're not alcohol free completely, but I wasn't getting drunk on it. But I think the next day I had a little bit of a fuzzy head, and I was like, yeah, I'm never having more than two of them again. So like
That's
now,
so
I like if I do have one, I'll just have one. So yeah, like when I was in rehab, the one of the key workers said to us, like, listen, we know that people use them, but we advise you not to touch alcohol free for 6 months to a year. And I stuck to that. I was like, right, cool. And then after a year, I was like, okay, I'll try them. But by that point, I was kind of freer of the addiction. Now, Lexi, how would you kind of define your problem with alcohol? Like, what words would you use? Because I know some people, like, I don't like the word alcoholic. I used it for a long time when I went to the meetings. I don't like it now because it's got a negative connotation. I know some people use grey area drinker. Would you? And I know people don't like to kind of put a label on themselves either. But what kind of level would you say, or what?
um hellish. I took
Yeah,
something that could be fun and I turned it into a fucking circus. Um,
yeah,
I just misused it so badly, and to the point where I was harming myself and others. And yeah, I mean, I don't really like the word alcoholic either. But
hmm,
I'm just, it's not my friend. It's never been my friend. And the sooner I realize that, the better. Uh, it's just like this gremlin that pulls me and will just shatter me and bury me if I let it.
yeah, yeah. I get that, and it's like a lot of people say that, and I assume you're clean and sober. You've not touched any of the
No, no,
drugs or anything like
no.
that. No,
Definitely
and
sober
I
100%.
remember, yeah, I remember people saying, oh, you shouldn't smoke weed and things like that. I think my parents, when they found out that I smoked weed back then, they were like, oh, this is gateway drug and all the rest of
Mhm.
it. And it's like, looking back, the only gateway drug that's out there is alcohol. I wouldn't have touched any of the other stuff like speed, cocaine, ecstasy, weed without having a drink first. That's the gateway drug. And society to keep kind of putting, well, there's drugs here and then alcohol. Alcohol's a drug as well. You might
Yeah.
as well put it all in there as well. And I think, they have people going around the school over here or the schools to teach them about alcohol and drugs. They do. They're not just kind of saying these are the dangers of drugs because they didn't seem to tell people the dangers of alcohol, but they've started doing that. There's a company, charity Motivate, that I work for over here, and I think it's so commendable that they're now, because their biggest problem, like there's a massive heroin problem on the island. There's a cocaine problem, crack cocaine problem, but alcohol is still the number one problem that people come into their charity with. So they're taking that to the schools and saying, and explaining to them, like, yeah, a lot of people, parents, whatever, can have a few drinks and have a blowout at the weekend or whatever, but it can lead to being a problem. So I'm glad that they're kind of explaining that to the kids as well. It's crazy, but
Yeah, it's
it's
just
it's a
about
good way
being
to do it.
aware of your own self, I think. Being aware
Yeah,
of how
yeah,
your body and mind react to certain things. Like, and if you find that you're spiraling due to whether it's alcohol, I've known people to spiral from weed. I've known people to spiral from self harm. You
yeah,
just got to be aware, and that it's in that self discovery that you realize what works for you and what doesn't.
yeah. Yeah, it's the society we live in now. We've got so much of everything at our fingertips, and like shopping is, a massive addiction. The Amazon stuff that people buy and Sheen or whatever it is, it's just, it builds and it builds and builds. Hey,
Hi.
don't know what happened there. I mean, it's the world we live in. We're like, why does the internet not work? And it's
I know.
so yeah. What was I saying? Yeah, I don't know what it's like in Canada. What was I talking about?
Um, the
Oh
awareness of
yeah, like
alcohol levels.
yeah, so like addiction and things like that. Like in Canada, well, in the UK and over here, we see these adverts coming on TV like during the day when people are possibly unemployed, and it's like sign up to whatever bingo or gamble site and we'll give you £20 free on your first, and it's like, why is that being allowed? Do you know what I mean? It's like the government needs to step in because it's been offered to people that can't afford it, but they're wanting to take that chance where they might win big. Obviously, they're not gonna. And then Motivate deals with a lot of gambling issues as well, and it's just madness. But like going back, we live in a society where we want everything now, at the touch of a button at our fingertips, and it's so. I think it's becoming unmanageable for a lot of people.
Yeah,
And
it's super
then
heavy.
yeah, and then it's so easy to just kind of, oh, I've got that bill coming in, right? I'll deal with it next week. I'm gonna go and have a bottle right now. That kind of mentality. That was me, and that was what I was kind of living with, 5+ years ago, and it was just horrible, and I didn't know a way out. But I love the fact that people like yourself, are helping people out because, like, I couldn't do it on my own. And do you have like a kind of and maybe I don't want to give away your secrets, but do you have like a kind of structure to your recovery and how you kind of help people, or is everyone individual?
Everyone's individual, absolutely, but I do have like a core outline to help people. There are 5 pillars
Hmm.
to my program, and each pillar kind of is designed to help each individual. So, let's say one of my pillars is cultivating presence in every moment. So, everyone can benefit from that, right? Everyone can benefit from
Hmm.
practicing being still and being present with yourself and not using outer influences such as substances to take you away from the moment. Um, but what that looks like for each individual is different, right? So once I get to know
Yeah.
you, I'm like, okay, so maybe you like exercise and you like being out in nature and you can benefit from less screen time. So let's put that into your program. Another pillar is radical self honesty. Everyone can benefit from that. If you're not
Hmm.
rigorously honest with yourself from the beginning, I just feel like you're not going to recover, at least not honestly.
Yeah.
And I made it my life's purpose to be honest with myself and authentic with everyone, because I was not authentic before. I was hiding myself because for some odd reason I just thought I wasn't good enough the way I was. So I'm like, well, alcohol makes me better. Alcohol makes me more funny. Alcohol makes me cool. Bullshit. No, it doesn't. So
Yeah.
yeah, each
Yeah.
individual, their program's different, but I do have five specific pillars that I will teach you in order to
Yeah.
help you recover and to reach your fullest potential.
Yeah. And I love that. And I think, you know what, like getting sober has made me the person that I was always supposed to be, but I needed to go through that shit and that like absolute hell to kind of come out the other side and go, right, this is who I'm meant to be. And you know what? It's like I kind of like I've said it before, but it's like almost like taking the red or the blue pill in the Matrix. Kind of seeing what life is supposed to be like. And I think a lot of the things that I learned I went to NA rather than AA. A lot of things I learned in NA and even smart recovery and like what you're saying, it's these are things that people can use in everyday life. You don't have to be coming through addiction to be able to kind of live a better life and a stronger life. Like meditation. I don't do it as often as I should do, but I definitely did that in the first couple of years of my recovery. One of the mantras is keep your side of the street clean. That at first I was like, what? I have to go out and street clean the street? No, it's like looking after your finances, looking after your home, you're looking after what's around you, and then you can start looking to take care of other people and having relationships with other people. But that's all these things are just I see a lot of people just wandering through life and they might not have problems, but they're not taking life as seriously as maybe they should. And I'm not saying it
An
needs to be
excellent
a
question.
serious thing, but you know what I mean? Like, I think we need to, as a society, we're just bumbling through because, we've got more than we need in life. And I think I like to strip things right back to basics. Yeah, I've got Netflix and, other streaming services are available. But do you know what I mean? Like, I do try and steer away from like we don't have a TV. We've got a projector, but it's not on all the time. Like I used to come home to my cottage in my first year of sobriety, and I was single, and I was like, I got rid of my TV because I'd come home and I would just put the TV on and flick through channels, and I was like, what am I doing? I'm meant to be writing my memoirs here, and I'm not doing that if the TV's on. Don't get me wrong. I love watching films and series, but there's a time and a place. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think we live in this society where there's so much of everything, and it's like we need to just take a break from that. Like you mentioned, like fitness and running, if people are into that. And I think one of the best tools that I had right at the beginning was getting back out and walking in nature.
It just makes you so
Not having my
yeah.
not having my AirPods in or anything like that. Just getting out, listening to nature, and and I think that's like one of the best things I did. What other kind of tools would you kind of recommend to people if they were just starting out, like aside from your kind of five pillars there?
Well, eliminating distractions is good and just getting really deep and real with yourself and asking
Hmm.
yourself, okay, so what's working in my life and what isn't? And what are the steps I can take to make my life work the way I want it to? And, just really think about what is the ideal life that I want and what's stopping me from getting there. Ask yourself, where do I see myself in 1 year if I keep doing what I'm doing now? And if I stop
Hmm.
doing what doesn't work for me, where could I be in 1 year? What are the possibilities that could come to me? What am I missing out on? It's just asking yourself the hard questions when you're first starting out. And
Yeah.
once you realize, like, okay, so if I continue going down this road, this is what my life could look like, or, lack of life. If I
Hmm.
make these changes, maybe I could save X amount of money. Maybe I could, start getting more comfortable with myself so I can be real with people, the people who love me, my family, my friends, my partner. I think the first thing people should do is just be honest with themselves and really ask the tough questions.
I love that. I had someone on a few weeks ago, Kristen, and she basically asked herself the same thing. She was like, "Now, what do you want out of life? Do you want to just kind of be kind of plateauing, doing exactly what you're now doing, drinking, not being successful, or do you want more out of life? Do you want to be potentially the greatest that you can be? And what's holding you back?" And it was alcohol, and that's the thing. We think it's this kind of oh, I've had a bad day or a good day, or let's celebrate, let's do this and do that. And it's like people they're basically staring into the weekend that's coming up, and they're not being present, and they're looking forward to like finishing work on a Friday. And it's like, if you hate your job that much, then do something else. It's like,
Yeah.
you can't be bothered, and you're just whiling away the hours at work and counting down the minutes. And I was the same. I hated my jobs. I used to work in call centers, and well, I did work in bars as well, and I quite enjoyed that. But then I was working in like offices doing data entry and things like that. And then, you know, and I put a lot of my drinking down to that because I wasn't fulfilled in my life, and I would sit and like stare at the clock and move my mouse about pretending to work, and I
Yeah.
hated it. Now I'm a gardener and I'm out, every single day. Okay, the weather's great now, but I even enjoy it in winter when it's absolutely chucking it down with rain. But I think that's the key. You've got to, find out what you really want in life. And I think for a lot of people, especially in our situation, the alcohol's holding them back,
Yeah.
and they're not going to get forward without it. We do in Smart, which is self management and recovery training. I think they do a thing called play the tape forward. So like if you're thinking of having a drink, and I know it's different from what you're saying, but it's kind of similar. So they say if you're thinking of having a drink, like just think, right, you're having that drink tonight. What's tomorrow going to look like? And then what's the next day and the day after that? Like, a whole week. And for me, and I'm sure the same as you, like one drink would, by what day are we on now? Thursday. By Saturday, it'd be a
Oh
disaster.
yeah.
Be an absolute disaster. Yeah. Lexi, if you could go back to like when your drinking started, so when you were 15, and you could go back, and there's two paths, so you can go on the path that you were on and that you're on now, or another path where you just never drink or drug, and which one would you choose?
Wow, that's a tough question. Of course, I'm leaning towards, never touching a drink, never doing drugs, but then I wouldn't be who I am today. And I feel
Exactly.
like I've struggled so much, yes, and I've suffered so much, yes, but this is where I am, and I'm happy with the version of me that's here. And that version of me wouldn't
Yeah.
be here without that girl that decided to do the drugs and the alcohol. So I'm gonna stick with the
Yeah.
struggle. I'm gonna stick with that so I can still be me today.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we're on like 99% of people that I've had in the podcast that choose the same path that they're on now because they like who they've become, they like who they are. And the amount of people that I'm sure you're helping, that those people, I'm not saying they'd be out there struggling still, but you've helped them, and why would you want to go the other way?
Yeah,
Not saying there's a right or wrong answer, but I'm happy with who I am now. And yeah, I might have been doing other successful things if I hadn't drank, but I wouldn't be the same person.
exactly.
So
Maybe I'd have a
yeah,
ton of money and live in this beautiful house, but I wouldn't be me. So
and there's still time for all that, Lexi. There's
exactly.
still time for all that. Yeah. So if you we like, do you have any recommendations for like a podcast, a film, or a book, or all three that are kind of to do with recovery?
My first like 3 days of recovery, I actually read Matthew Perry's book that he wrote about his
Oh,
addiction, and I really resonated with it. And I
yeah.
think I must have read it 3 or 4 times in my first couple months of recovery. I recommend that book. Like
Yeah.
I really, really loved it.
It's an amazing book. I read a lot, but I listen to a lot on Audible when I'm working, and I think I'm pretty sure it was Matthew Perry that was reading it to me.
Yeah,
So I love that when it's the actual author,
yeah,
the person you know or like know of, and then they're in your ear for however long. And it was like I think it was like a week that it took me to listen to it, and then I think it was only a couple of months after that he passed, and it was like, oh my God,
I
do you know what I mean?
know.
It was like I kind of really got to know him and his voice, and I mean, obviously we know his voice from Friends, but do you know what I mean? It was like that intimacy with him
Yes,
telling me his story,
yes.
and yeah, and then he passed, and it's just an absolute tragedy. But no, it's an amazing book that I really resonate. What's it called? It's called something. I can't remember. I'll put it in the show notes. It is a really good book. Something and the ugly. Oh, no, I'm completely getting it wrong. But yeah,
I
yeah.
can't remember.
I'll put it in the show notes. So where can we find you, Lexi? What's your Instagram and website if you've got that as well?
On Instagram, it is the sober experience underscore with Lexie, Lexie. And my webpage is in the links in my bio. There's 5 concepts that help me in sobriety. That's a link in my bio as well. And there is a free consult call that you can book, also link in my bio. So everything's on my Instagram. Everything is there, organized
Yeah.
under my profile.
Cool, cool. Well, I'll put it all in the description of the podcast as well. Lastly, Lexi, do you regret getting sober?
Oh, no, no, no. I do not regret getting sober, not even for a second. I don't know if I'd still be alive if I wasn't sober right now, so no.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. No, I completely concur. Is there anything else you want to kind of add to the listeners before we go? It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Lexi. Thank you so
It's
much.
been great talking to you, and I love that we got to connect in person finally after months of
Yeah.
just following each other on Instagram and liking each other's posts. So I appreciate you having me.
Well,
And I
no,
really,
no, it's the pleasure's been all mine, and I love that. I love this. You know, I talk about the kind of having everything at our fingertips. I think, you know, social media for a while, like you, I went off it for a while and then I came back onto it because, you know, it's where a lot of the recovery work is. But social media can be so distracting and so dangerous. But I think used in the correct ways, like hopefully you and me are doing, then I think it can be an amazing tool. You know, my algorithm it's pretty good. It works. You know, I was looking at those things, people that you might know and all that, and it's all recovery stuff, you know. And I was looking at my friends a couple of years ago, and his was all drum and bass stuff. And I thought, okay, if that's what you're into, that's
exactly.
cool, you know. Yeah. But no, thank you so much, Lexi. Enjoy the rest of your day because what is it, 1 o'clock
It's
now?
only one
Yeah.
o'clock now, yeah.
Yeah, cool. It's 6 o'clock here. I'm gonna go and have some amazing food and chill out.
Wonderful.
But have an amazing day and enjoy your
Thank you
weekend when it
so much.
comes. Thanks,
Thank
Lexi.
you.
Cheers. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Yeah, thank you, Lexi. Great conversation as always. You know, love having such varied and interesting guests on the podcast. Um, you know, for Lexi to tell us that she's got autism, which obviously we know that can being on the spectrum can have different effects with drugs and alcohol and things like that. But for her to be doing mediation, meditation, visualization, and trying to change the narrative of her being and her life to really kind of conquer the alcoholism. It's just fascinating, just absolutely fascinating. So I will put the details of Lexi's business, her sober coaching, and her Instagram in the show notes, and also everything else that we spoke about. But to have to be a sober coach at such kind of early days in sobriety, a lot of people will kind of frown upon that. Sometimes I do as well if they're doing it for the wrong reasons. You do see a lot of people on Instagram and things that they've got couple of weeks, couple of months sobriety, and suddenly they're a sober coach, and you think, really, are you? Were you that struggling? Or are you just trying to cash in? Listening and speaking to Lexi and seeing her Instagram and our website, it's for all the right reasons, and I think, like I said in the beginning in the conversation, that having someone so close to the beginning of the journey is a gift for other people that are just starting as well. Because like to me, I'm 5 years sober, and I'm like, right, I do try and remember what it was like, but I'm so far removed from those early days now that I don't have the same exact insight that someone like Lexie. I mean, Lexie's a few years now, but it's having those early days that's imperative for people to actually listen. And I didn't listen to people who weren't in recovery. When I got sober, so I was like, nah, they don't know. So I can see that being the same point. Oh, this person's 20 years sober. They don't know what it's like anymore. They don't remember. We try and remember. We do our best to try and remember what it was like. I still have a bit of an insight as well. I want to be a sober coach, but what I'm trying to say is I think it's a gift for people that are in such early sobriety. If they're doing it for the right reasons, then crack on. By all means, it's the best way to be. So, yeah. As I say, hope the little blip in the middle didn't affect the podcast and listening or viewing experience too much. I have, if you're watching, I've kind of, well, I've cleared up in here. I'm getting my angles just right. Jen, if she ever watches this, is going to go absolutely nuts that there was a clothes horse in the background there for the interview. So apologies to Jen, apologies to the viewers. If you're just listening, then you're oblivious to it, but that won't happen again. So yeah, but as I say, we're still early days. We're just trying to kind of, I'm trying to kind of get the best look for this, get the right camera angles, get the right camera. I'm hoping that this is just my iPhone, but it's obviously got a much better quality and resolution than the camera on my Mac. So I'm hoping that will give people a bit better kind of viewing production quality. So yeah. Other than that, everything's good. Pop a comment in. Let us know what you think of the podcast. We're coming up on, I think we're on like episode 42 or 43 now, so smashing through it. Season 3 will be after episode 50. Episode 50 is going to be, if we get it done, it's going to be a bit of a different one. Jen and I are going to be, Jen's going to be basically taking the helm, and she's going to be interviewing, hate that word, but having a conversation with me about my drinking days and my story. So that's going to be an interesting one, because I've never really, as much as I talk about it in the podcast with my guests, I've never really kind of sat down. I've done other podcasts, you can go out and listen to them, but not on this one. So it'll be good for me to just kind of finally get my full story out there. So yeah, looking forward to doing that one. That one will be episode 50. So we need to get cracking with that and get it recorded. But yeah, other than that, everything's good. Stay safe, stay sober, and stay supportive. Cheers. Bye bye.